Do you remember the very famous TV show Shark Tank? It's basically a show about all these budding entrepreneurs who really work with seasoned business people and really try to build a business based on pitching their services and how to basically become a good entrepreneur. And one of the skills that show really exposed the world to was the skill of negotiation. So if you haven't watched that, definitely go and check out that show. So again, going back to what I talked about negotiation last week, this is not a skill that people are born with. It is developed over time. And really, what it really starts off with is you rewiring how you perceive, view, and feel about what negotiation is. So rather than going on to giving you a 5 or 10 step guide on what to do in order to become a good negotiator, I thought let's just go back to the basics and look into what are some things that you can do to reframe your mind and your views and your mindset around what negotiation actually is to eventually become a good negotiator as a healthcare professional. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Thank you very much, as always, for your contribution, your time, attention, and presence. For those who don't know me, my name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We are a coaching practice that helps English as a second language healthcare providers who work closely with patients become better communicators with them in order for them to build trust, credibility, influence, and impact with their patients and stand out in their workplace as a person of excellence. So if you don't remember last week's video, I'm just going to leave the link over here. We spoke about what exactly negotiation is and isn't, and also in a lot of the content on LinkedIn last week. I also covered on the video, so what are some situations that you can find yourself in as a healthcare provider where you will need to put your negotiation skills into practice. So originally my plan was to film a video that sort of gives you a little sort of guide, so to speak, on how you can become a better negotiator. But I just thought, as someone who really struggles with negotiation myself, I'm going to feel like an imposter doing that. I don't want to really teach you guys something that I'm not really good at, because I keep it real at all times. So rather than that, I felt let's go back and do a little shift of what our current limiting beliefs may be about what negotiation is and how we can turn that around, what we can do in order to change our perception and how we view and our perspective on what negotiation is into something that's more constructive, that's going to work in both our favor as well as that of our patients, and also put this as a vital tool belt in our skill set of being a better communicator. So actually what got me interested in this topic of negotiation was a podcast episode I listened to by Jay Shetty on purpose. I'm going to leave the link over here. And in this particular episode, he interviewed this gentleman named Chris Voss, who, if I'm not mistaken, he used to be a SWAT guy in the Special Forces in the Army. Then he worked in the suicide hotline.
Oprah Winfrey.
What are women doing wrong, or what can they do better in negotiation?
And now basically all he does is he has his company where he talks, he makes, builds executives to become better communicators. And one of the things that he specializes in is how to really train people to become better negotiators. And he started doing that when he was in the SWAT team. He used to be in the FBI, and he had to do negotiations with like terrorists and really, some not very nice people, so to speak. So he's pretty good at this, and he's also written a book on negotiation called Never Split the Difference. So I haven't read that book, but definitely to get more context about where I've got the material for this video from, definitely go and check out that episode, and you can almost always you can buy or borrow the book as well. So based on what I saw and heard in this episode, I'm just going to break down some of the elements of negotiation that he brought up as to how we can retrain and reframe it. And I'm going to give you examples that are relevant to your roles as healthcare providers and when you are working with your patients as to how it can be beneficial for both parties. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So the very first myth really that we have about negotiation is that it is directly correlated with conflict. So when you tell yourself and train yourself to believe that negotiation is a collaborative, long-term relationship with your patient that is based on both parties getting something of benefit, that is when you will change the way in which you approach negotiation. So none of us, including myself, are a fan of conflict and confrontation. I think as humans, we are hardwired to avoid those things because we don't want to look like the bad guy in front of everybody. And we want to make everyone happy. We want to be people pleasers. And that's really how in default, that's how we're operating as. So naturally, we see negotiation as something really bad. It almost feels like you are sort of throwing your weight around, you are dominating somebody, you are trying to influence or manipulate somebody in a negative way, and a whole heap of other things as well. And it's no exception. As someone who's not good at negotiation, I still believe in all these things. But in the situation where you start to really feel like, even if you look at my examples from last week, where I spoke about, how, when I was a patient, I got the healthcare providers to really see from my point of view why their methods and why their techniques were not working for me. So if you remember from last week, I talked about an endocrinologist who helped me, who had to go to change my medication for my polycystic ovarian, and as well as a treatment plan for my for my depression and anxiety. So in both those situations, what I could really do was get those healthcare providers to work with me collaboratively to ultimately give them a result, or give myself a result that's beneficial for my health. At the same time, I worked with them for a certain amount of time. When I felt that I was done with them, I could move on to the next stage of my treatment. So what you really need to do is see negotiation as something that you're doing as an effort to build a partnership, a collaborative effort, a relationship with your patients in a positive light. So say, for example, you may be an oncologist and you are exploring the methods of treatment that you might be suggesting to a cancer patient. So in that situation, what you need to take into account is the fact that the patient may not be comfortable with certain types of treatment. So whether it's radiation or it's chemotherapy or anything else that you can think of, even the way in which it is administered may not be in favor for patients, not just because they're scared of it. It's also because they may have had certain side effects. They may have certain things that they are quite reactive to. Their body reacts to it. So in that situation, it's important that you hear things from their perspective and get them to tell you about whether what in that space has worked well or otherwise for them, and also whilst also reassuring them that if they experience any side effects that you haven't heard of, they can always come back to you and for another overview or something like that. So keeping an open mind and keeping this at the forefront that you are doing this not to really have your way, but really to benefit the patient, but whilst also, seeing it as a win on your end. So that win-win motto is how you will really need to be reframing your views on negotiation. So that's the very first one. Number two, I would say, is being combative and controlling are going to be your absolute kryptonite when it comes to becoming a good negotiator. Now, you can always have these situations as a patient, when you're in a healthcare setting and you have a patient who might be very demanding, who might say that, say for example, you might be a GP and there might be a patient who is very, very distressed and, they think that whatever their condition might be, it is quite urgent and it has to be attended to ASAP at the expense of everyone else who's been waiting at the GP clinic. In that situation, it's very easy for anybody to become reactive because what you want to be doing at that point is to get this person off your hair and also sort of reinforce to them that they have to wait their turn. But if you become combative, if you start arguing with your patient and you start to do whatever you can in terms of trying to control the situation, it will completely go against you. So rather than being reactive, it's important for you to internalize and say, what can I do in this situation where I can be assertive, be very clear on my boundaries, take a step back, and be very direct with the patient who is, for whatever reason, challenging you, and just speak my mind and be very direct that, you will get your turn, but you will have to wait a little bit. Every single person who's come to this GP clinic is under distress for XYZ reason. So it's important that you comply with whatever the guideline is and be considerate of other patients as well. Number 3 is, it's very, very imperative to give importance or validate what the other party or person is saying and acknowledge their perspective. So in this case with your patients, this again ties really well with active listening, and you really get to see where the patient is coming from. So say, for example, you can be someone who's like a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist, and you might be giving based on the symptoms that a patient of yours or client of yours has come into, and you might be prescribing some medication to them that may not sit very well with them. They may be concerned about what the side effects of that would be. What's that going to do to their weight, their appetite, their moods, their sleep schedule, and their blood pressure, everything else. So that person may ultimately say that, it's not for me whatsoever. But before you get to that, you need to also hear out that other person's perspective, so the patient's perspective of why they feel this particular medication could be a cause of concern. Now, this is not an opportunity for you to get, again, attacking and defensive and start going on about, without this medication, you're not going to get better. You have to hear out what the patient is saying, paraphrase it, and also validate and acknowledge where they're coming from and clarify what they're saying. And also then after that, you will be better prepared on what to say as a response to that. It's not necessarily a rebuttal, I would say, but it's more to do with, again, you have to be factual about, instead of this medication, what other alternative can be offered? Or if you want to try, certain type of treatment over a certain period of time, and come back together and work on, look into which are aspects of the treatment or medication have worked and which one have not worked, and review it and revise it with time to time. So by doing this, ultimately, you are being collaborative. You're not being that combative, controlling, defensive healthcare provider who's trying to gaslight your patients or anything like that. You are really seeing things from their perspective and offering them solutions and options that's going to be beneficial for both parties, so yourself and them. And finally, if you want a real resolution as part of a negotiation, it needs to feel like it's moving forward. At the same time, it's kind of pointless to try and fight every single battle. So this is like really 2 points that I've put into one. So there are situations that you cannot negotiate, and that could be for a lot of reasons. There are certain things that you as a healthcare provider don't want to compromise on, whether it's your basic principles, your morals, your ethics, and there are some things that patients are very, very stubborn and very close-minded about, whatever it may be. So don't really take that as a defeat per se, but you might just say to yourself that you don't have to win every single battle. You don't have to win, and negotiation is not about winning. But still, it's not about you having your way or them having their way every single time. At the same time, it's also not about having an immediate resolution. Going through a negotiation can be a very long process. Doesn't just happen overnight. It takes, it could be a few days, could be a few months, weeks, years, we don't know. But how you have to navigate through negotiation is that it is moving forward. You are progressing to the goal that the patient wants as well as you want. So as long as you're heading in that direction, it's worth going forward. But if you feel that you're doing the same thing over and over again for weeks on end and it's not leading you anywhere, probably best to drop it, because it's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to be a waste of time and energy. So these are 4/5 mindset shifts that you might want to try in the future in order for you to become a better negotiator. And if you want to be in touch and be up to date with more content on how you can become a better communicator as a healthcare provider, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and also leave a comment if any of this resonated with you. And also please hit the notification bell on your YouTube channel link to see when the next video will be uploaded. And I do this on a weekly basis, usually on a Friday. And as always, thank you very much for your time, attention, engagement, and presence, and I will see you next week.